All right, welcome everybody. This is Organic EDU Media. Today we're going to be understanding fallacy. All right, what is it? Why is it important? Why do we care? A fallacy is an argument that appears to be logical, but upon further inspection contains critical flaws. So if you have an argument, you want it to be logically consistent. You don't just want it to be correct. You don't want to stumble upon the truth. You want to deductively or inductively solve your way through the truth. So this is only relevant really in argumentation, but argumentation has many different subgroups. We have talks about sports, debates about politics, debates about what should we do in the business, debates about what movie should we go to. We have little conversations and little arguments all the time. So when I mean argumentation, I don't mean two people heated screaming at each other. But we're really going to get right into this. There's a lot of different types of fallacies. The first one we're talking about, not really too important. These are formal fallacies. These are like when we get into like Aristotelian logic, so we're just going to run through this one. Basically, the fallacy is kind of paradoxical, thinking that just because something contains a fallacy means that it's untrue. Okay? Something can have a fallacy in it and still be true. A argument can be valid and still incorrect. Probability fallacy, just because something has the probability of happening doesn't mean it's going to happen. Denying the antecedent and affirming the consequent. So basically the opposite of each other. Saying something didn't happen because of missing causing events. Saying something did happen because of perceived causing events. So a lot of these are going to have like extreme feeling examples. So when we think about these, we want to connect them into real life. So you'll see most of these informal fallacies in your day-to-day life. This is how most people understand fallacies on like a baseline level. This is the most important part of this slide, basically. So these are informal fallacies. So not formal. These are not based on any like logical construction of methodology, whether it be inductive or deductive, Aristotelian or Newtonian, doesn't matter. These are just your day-to-day. Think of this as your day-to-day. This is the person who's cut in line with you in front of you at like Target or something. I don't know. But yeah, remember, it's not always like a heated argument. We have many different types of arguments in our day-to-day life. So ad hominem. Easiest way to understand this one, it's an insult. There's different types. Basically, a tu quoque ad hominem is basically like, what do you know about health? You're fat, essentially. Let's say there's a politician who wanted to advocate for health. A tu quoque ad hominem would be, what do you know about health? You're overweight. We didn't need that anyway. So let me just check really quick. The other types of ad hominems are going to be just abusives and guilt by association. There's also poisoning the well. So abusive ad hominem is just somebody makes a good faith argument and they just like shut up idiot or something. Poisoning the well is like when you spread malicious lies about somebody to manipulate other people's perspective against them. That would be poisoning the well. And the other one I mentioned was guilt by association. Yeah, just because somebody is in a group that has a bunch of these people that are all of a subgroup doesn't mean that each part of the larger group is also part of the subgroup. So, appeal to ignorance. The best one for this is well, you can't prove it didn't happen, so it had to have happened. Or I think this happened and you can't prove that it didn't happen, or prove to me that it didn't happen. So this would be appeal to ignorance. The best example of this in real life would be, you can't prove to me that the Earth isn't flat, I step outside and it's flat, you know? You can't prove to me that aliens aren't real, so they must be real somewhere, as in like little green men and flying saucers flying around Earth. So begging the question. This one is one. This is gonna be kind of an extreme example, but I see it a lot in our day to day. So begging the question. If you have a question, usually that question will become satisfied at some point once you understand the components that the question contains. Once you understand, you no longer have the question. But some people always keep the question, right? Some people will always just keep the question going. So it's like, okay, you're asking a question for a specific reason. You're not pointing anything out. You're not making an argument. You're presenting a question where I then have to ask you, what the hell are you talking about? One of the biggest examples I see in our society is Holocaust denial. So I see a lot of people going, do you really think 6 million people died in the Holocaust? Well, a lot more people died, but I'm trying to be as least extreme as possible. This is a course for everybody. So, well, we have a lot of testimony from that time of people who were involved, and yeah, we really are making a rough estimate, but yeah, we're approximating around that many of that specific type of people died, of Jewish people died. So basically, what they're doing is they're trying to sow confusion. So you question the premises, and now you're challenging the conclusion. So because the average person is ignorant, they don't really know where the numbers come from. They don't know about Adolf Eichner, not Adolf Hitler, but Adolf Eichner. They don't know about any of these things. So what they'll do is people who like to spread these ideas for whatever reason, they will use strange phrasings of questions to get you to kind of prod for any malicious thing or incorrect thing that's not even really there. Basically, if somebody has a question, I don't know, what have you done to research it? Sometimes that's just the answer. What have you done to research the question? If somebody makes a claim to you, they should always have a source. If anybody, oh yeah, appeal to nothing fallacy. What's your source for that? My source is that I made it up, brother. Goalpost shifting. So goalpost shifting is another one you'll see. So let's say I say men are better than women because men run societies, and I say, okay, well, what about all the women in the world who are properly running societies? And he said, oh well, that's just a few of the things, but no women can go off into a military group like men can. Okay, so now we're goalpost shifting. The original argument was men run society, so men are better. And then we moved to, okay, well, some women can run society, but no women can join military groups. And usually when we goalpost shift, the next thing is also BS. Because Joan of Arc exists, and the IDF exists, and tons of different things in the world exist. Women are in the military, so I don't know why we would ever assume this is a good argument. But, these are legitimate arguments that I see on a day-to-day. False cause fallacy. So a false cause fallacy is basically, do I have any good examples of this? Yeah, I do. So basically, I think a lot of people will do things based on vibes. So they'll get a vibe and they'll make all sorts of conclusions based on the vibe. And what happens is all the conclusions that come from these, nebulous premises, we start to think of them as true. They start to become true in our head. So, essentially, a false cause in its most simplest form is would be someone saying, it rains because God cries, or something. That would be like the biggest false cause. Yeah. And I'm not trashing religion or anything. I'm actually a believer in the teachings of Jesus Christ. And he said we shall not take thy Lord's name in vain. And I think that is a logical follow to that. The false dilemma. Love it or leave it. Somebody giving you ultimatums, basically. It's basically the simplest way of looking at it. Ultimatums. Take it or leave it, love it or leave it, this or that. When, there's always probably more options. But some people just want to give ultimatums. Appeal to authority or irrelevant authority. Taylor Swift said white rice causes cancer. White rice must cause cancer. Yeah, so this would be an irrelevant appeal to authority, basically. A straw man. A straw man would be something... Okay, hold on. Sorry. I know exactly what a straw man is. So a straw man is when you make up someone's argument, basically. You're not listening to them. You don't care what's coming out of their mouth, but you're going to paint a caricature of them verbally, and then you're going to attack that caricature of them. Yeah, everybody does this. People will make silly voices when they do straw mans. Like, basically, if it feels like the person is arguing against something you didn't even say, you're being strawmanned, essentially. And then hasty generalization fallacy. So data paints bigger pictures for things. When we have data spanning back from years and years and years, and from tons of different groups of people, sure, they're not always correct, but they do paint pictures. And the more data you have, the more clear of a picture you can paint. So a hasty generalization fallacy just means that you don't have enough data, or the data that you have could lead to this, but this data that we have, or this premise that we have, is not sufficient enough to prove this conclusion, essentially. And then appeal to pity. Yeah, emotional arguments are really prevalent in modern day literature and how people speak. Logical appeals are getting less and less prevalent, and people are going for more wild appeals. But yeah, so just don't get pity partied. Quantification fallacies. So this is more kind of like really formal fallacies. Existential fallacy. So when one of your premises, you have a universal premise, which would be like, all men have two arms, or all men have two arms. Therefore, some men don't have two arms. Conclusion is probably true, but the argument doesn't make sense because you have a universal premise leading to a particular conclusion. It doesn't logically follow. Yeah, be careful for that. This is also kind of similar to hasty generalization. If someone says one thing did this, or a few of these things did this, therefore all the things of this nature are this way, so it doesn't make fucking sense. And you can put two and two together. Quantification shifting. Similar to goalpost shifting. Quantification shifting, similar to goalpost shifting, yeah, basically just moving numbers around as you see fit. There's also cherry picking. That's another interesting one. So cherry picking is when you... Actually, I might actually have that on the next one. Let's see. We'll talk about cherry picking later. Quantification fallacy. Very similar to quantification shifting. It's when the numbers don't say what you think they say. Gambler's fallacy. It's one you'll see at the casino. This one's pretty fun, actually. So it means just because you've lost a metric load of times does not mean you're about to win. No shot. No shot, buddy. Gamble money, you're only okay with losing. Brother, because you're going through the life savings, and odds are the win is not around the corner. Alright? Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you win, but casinos are made to make money. And they certainly don't give away free money. Logical fallacy. So, okay, yeah. So logical fallacy. If you're getting in a debate with somebody, these would be some of the things you're going to see. Circular argument. So it would be something... I had a really good example. Circular argument definition. Or circular argument example. Circular argument example. So yeah, here's some random examples straight off the web. You have to drive under the speed limit because it's illegal to drive faster than the speed limit. Schools should continue to have textbooks read from cover to cover because otherwise students will not be well educated. Chickens hatch from eggs, but an egg doesn't exist unless a chicken lays it, and yet a chicken must hatch from an egg. So basically, a circular argument is when the premise that proves the conclusion reaffirms itself through the conclusion ad infinitum. It just, it always leads back into a circle. It's like a self-replenishing validation or justification or proof machine. Another similar thing would be all roads lead to Rome. So an all roads lead to Rome fallacy is what people do when anything that happens, no matter how contradictory to their argument, always seems to prove or justify their argument. So it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter in what context it is, it's always further proof of their conclusion. So that's circular argument and all roads lead to Rome fallacy. Bandwagon fallacy. Alright, you've heard this since you were a kid. Just because a bunch of people are jumping off a bridge doesn't mean you should too. Red herring. A red herring is basically when you make an argument and somebody brings up an irrelevant topic that doesn't matter, that's not pertaining to the situation at all, and just completely avoids the original topic at hand. You also, just to be clear, I'll go through this later actually. Red herring, if you want to do that in actual argument, just say you're changing the topic, because that's essentially what's happening. Post hoc rationalization, hindsight bias, these types of things. I drank water, now I'm sick, the water must have made me sick. Over catastrophizing, these types of things. These are post hoc rationalizations. It's basically taking something after the fact and saying something before the fact was obviously the case. Begging the question. I think I had this on there twice. I did. Don't beg the question. Don't beg the question. Say what you're going to say or don't say anything at all. Google it, do the research, see why people are saying it, and then make your argument on why you think that the prevalent data at hand that everybody agrees with is wrong. Do that instead. Equivocation. So equivocation is an interesting one. We have two ways, or we have one word for two different meanings sometimes, like bat. Bat and bat. Baseball bat and a winged mammal. So imagine if I were to say that Timmy is going to play baseball, so he left with his bat. And then somebody else goes, why the fuck would you need a winged mammal to play baseball? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, well, that is, yeah. That is equivocation. There it is. Wow. Sunk cost fallacy. When basically people are so deep into the hole, they just keep pumping money into it, thinking it's going to bail them out or something. All right, and that is about it. So another thing that I want to go over really quick. Don't think that people are going to understand you if you use these terms to them in like day-to-day argument. Some people will. People who have studied this in school will. They'll understand exactly what you're saying. But most people have never heard of these concepts. Have never understood what these things are. They don't teach this in high school. They don't. They should. They really should. But just the fact of the matter is, people don't really understand what these concepts are. So find different ways of translating these things, and normal ways of communicating with people when these things pop up on how to deal with them. Bandwagon fallacy. Hey, bro, just because everybody's doing that doesn't mean it's the right thing. It could be a false appeal to authority. At the head of that. This guy doesn't really know. What does this guy actually know? Show me one thing. Show me one thing where this guy sounds smart. Show me just one thing. Show me one thing. Circular argument. Hey, dude. You keep saying that this proves that, but you really haven't justified it. You're saying it proves it because it proves it. So find normal ways of communicating with people about these things. And then if you're around people who understand these concepts, then you can discuss these concepts. I really wanted this to be one of the more entertaining courses that I make, because it's definitely the one that interests me the most, and the one I think is going to be most important in all of this. So thank you. Have a great day.